Hello and welcome. Go ahead and find a comfortable place to lie down. Let your body grow heavy and really sink into the support beneath you. It is time to let go of the day with all its thoughts and all its hurry. Close your eyes if you wish. We are about to begin a quiet journey together. A journey not of the feet, but of the mind. We will travel across vast oceans and through the deep corridors of time. But for now, just be still. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your own breath. In and out, slow and steady. Each breath is a quiet wave washing over you, bringing a sense of calm. There is no need to do anything at all, simply listen. Listen to the sound of my voice, and listen to the sound that lies behind it. Can you hear it? It is the gentle rhythm of the ocean, the soft, sighing sound of waves meeting the shore. It is a sound as old as the world itself, a lullaby that nature has sung for billions of years. Let this sound fill the space around you. Let it wash away any lingering worries. Imagine yourself on a quiet, peaceful beach with the cool night air on your skin and the endless sky above you. Tonight, we will not be troubled by the loud noises of the modern world. We will leave behind the demands and the deadlines. Instead, we will wrap ourselves in the soft blanket of the ocean's song. This sound has a special kind of magic. It speaks a language older than words, a language of peace, of stillness, of eternity. It connects us to something vast and ancient, something much bigger than our own small lives. As you listen, feel your muscles begin to relax. Your shoulders, your arms, your legs, everything is becoming soft and serene. Allow your mind to drift. If thoughts come, just let them float by like clouds in the night sky. Do not hold on to them. Return your attention to the sound of the waves. Each wave rises and falls, a perfect repeating pattern. It is the heartbeat of our planet, a steady, reassuring pulse that has comforted countless souls across the ages. You are safe here. You are at peace. Let the gentle motion of the water rock you slowly, gently, into a state of deep relaxation. You are ready to begin our story. The sound you hear is more than just water moving. It is the voice of history. Each wave that breaks upon the sand carries with it a story, a whisper from a time long past. These waters have seen everything. They have witnessed the birth of continents and the slow dance of stars in the night sky. They have held the first tiny sparks of life and watch them grow into the incredible diversity we know today. When you listen to the ocean, you are listening to the memory of the earth itself. It is a story told not in words, but in rhythms and whispers. Imagine the sheer scale of it all. The ocean covers most of our world. It is a single vast body of water that connects every shore, every island, every continent. The water that touches the coast of Africa may one day touch the shores of Asia. The rain that falls on your window was once part of this great global sea. In this way, the ocean connects us all. It connects us to people on the other side of the world. And it connects us to our own ancestors who stood on ancient shores and listened to this very same sound, under these very same stars. This connection is deep and profound. It runs in our blood. Our bodies are mostly water, just like the planet we call home. The salt in our tears is like the salt of the sea. Perhaps that's why the sound of the ocean feels so familiar, so much like coming home. It reminds us of a time before we were born, a time of quiet, warm and gentle floating. It is a primal memory held deep within us, a feeling of being held, of being safe, of belonging to something immense and eternal. The waves are whispering this ancient secret to you now. As you continue to breathe slowly and deeply, let this feeling of connection wash over you. You are not separate from the world. You are a part of this grand unfolding story, the story of the planet, of life, of the endless ocean. The soft, rhythmic shushing of the waves is a reminder of this truth. It is a sound that dissolves boundaries. It blurs the line between you and the universe. You are a drop in the ocean, and the entire ocean is within you. Let this thought bring you a profound sense of peace as we prepare to drift back in time. Our journey tonight will be a gentle one. We will float on these currents of sound back to the very beginning. We will not rush. The ocean teaches us the virtue of patience. Everything in its world happens slowly over immense stretches of time. Mountains of rock are worn down to grains of sand. Tiny shells accumulate over millennia to form vast cliffs. Life itself unfolded here with a slow, unhurried grace. We will adopt this pace tonight. We will drift slowly, allowing the story to unfold in its own time, just as the tide slowly rises and falls. We will begin in an age of fire and steam, when the world was new and the first drops of rain began to fall. These were the waters that formed the first primordial oceans, dark, warm, and full of minerals. We will imagine what it was like to be there, in that silent ancient world, as the seas were born. We will feel the immense power and the deep quiet of a planet still finding its shape. This is where our story starts, in the deep, dark cradle of the newborn Earth, under a sky filled with unfamiliar stars. From there we will drift forward, carried by the currents of time. We will witness the first miraculous appearance of life, simple, single-celled beings floating in the warm, nutrient-rich soup. We will watch as they slowly evolve, becoming more complex, more varied. We will see the first strange gardens of the sea floor, filled with creatures unlike anything that exists today. It is a story of trial and error, of slow adaptation, and of the incredible persistent power of life to find a way. All of this is held within the memory of the water. This is not a history lesson of dates and facts. It is a story for the senses, a dream we will share. You will feel the warmth of the ancient seas. You will see the faint light filtering down into the abyss. You will hear the deep silence of a world without birds or voices, only the slow movement of water. Let my voice be your guide, and let the sound of the waves be your vessel. Relax now. Let go completely. Our journey under the waves of time is about to begin. Let the gentle tide carry you away. Let us drift back now, further and further back, before any life, before any green thing grew upon the land, before the land itself had truly settled. We are going back 4.5 billion years. The Earth is a young planet, a chaotic and violent place. Imagine a world glowing with heat. Its surface is a sea of molten rock, a landscape of fire and stone. There is no blue sky, no gentle clouds. The air is thick with gases, a toxic blanket that chokes the stars from view. There is no sound of waves, only the hiss of steam and the deep, rumbling groan of a world in formation. This is our starting point. In this fiery cradle, our planet was constantly bombarded from space. Asteroids and comets, remnants from the birth of the solar system, rained down upon the molten surface. Each impact was a cataclysmic event, sending shockwaves across the globe and throwing more molten rock into the turbulent atmosphere. It was a time of unimaginable violence, a cosmic storm that raged for millions of years. It is hard to picture such a place from the comfort of our quiet beds. But this inferno was the necessary beginning. It was the furnace in which our world and its future oceans were forged. Within this chaos, something essential was arriving. Many of the comets and asteroids that struck the young Earth were not just barren rocks. They were cosmic snowballs, great chunks of ice and frozen gases that had travelled from the cold outer reaches of the solar system. With every single impact, they delivered a precious cargo water. Drop by drop, impact by impact, the building blocks of our oceans were being delivered from the heavens. At the same time, the planet's own inner heat was forcing water vapour, trapped within the molten rock, to vent to the surface through colossal volcanoes, adding to the growing moisture in the atmosphere. Slowly, over an immense span of time, the Earth began to cool. The crust of the planet started to solidify, forming the first dark volcanic rocks. The relentless bombardment from space began to lessen. The atmosphere, thick with steam and volcanic gases, remained incredibly hot, a global greenhouse trapping the planet's heat. But a change was coming. The stage was being set for the most transformative event in our planet's young life. The water that had arrived from space and emerged from the Earth's core was gathering above, waiting for the moment it could finally fall and claim the world. As the planet's surface continued to cool, it eventually reached a critical point. The temperature dropped just enough for the superheated steam in the atmosphere to begin to condense. A single drop of liquid water formed, then another and another. And then the rain began. This was not a rain you or I have ever known. It was not a gentle shower or a passing storm. It was a deluge of cosmic proportions, a downpour that would last for thousands, perhaps millions of years. The sky opened, and the water that had been held in the atmosphere for so long began its long journey down to the waiting Earth. Imagine the sound. Not the gentle patter we find soothing today, but a constant, deafening roar. Torrents of hot, acidic water poured from the sky, striking the newly formed rock of the planet's crust. It was a rain that fell on a world of black, barren rock, with no soil or plant to absorb it. The water immediately began to run, seeking the lowest points on the rugged, uneven surface. It carved the first channels, the first riverbeds flowing across the volcanic plains and gathering in the vast, shallow basins and deep craters left by ancient impacts. The birth of the ocean was a noisy, violent and magnificent affair. The basins began to fill. At first they were just enormous steaming puddles, but the rain was relentless. It fell without pause, day and night, year after year, century after century. The puddles grew into lakes, the lakes into seas, and the seas began to merge. Slowly, a global ocean started to take shape. This first ocean was not the cool blue expanse we know today. It was hot, perhaps near boiling point in some places, and it was acidic, capable of dissolving the rocks it touched, which in turn made the water rich with minerals. It was a strange and alien sea. As this great hot ocean grew, it changed the world forever. The sheer weight of the water pressed down on the thin crust of the planet. The constant presence of water cooled the surface more rapidly, and a new kind of silence began to descend. The roar of the endless rain was slowly replaced by a new sound, the sound of water moving against itself. The sound of currents and perhaps the first waves lapping against the shores of newly formed volcanic islands. The world was no longer just a place of fire and rock. It was now a water world. Now the rain has eased. A vast global ocean covers almost the entire planet. The sky above is still thick with clouds, and the sun is only a dim, hazy glow behind them. The land that exists is nothing more than the peaks of great volcanoes, rising like dark, jagged islands from the endless water. Let your mind sink beneath the surface of this ancient sea. It is warm, almost like a bath. The water is not clear and blue, but a murky greenish-brown colour. It is thick with dissolved minerals, a chemical broth unlike anything that exists on Earth today. This is the primordial soup. This ancient ocean was a rich chemical factory. The water, made acidic by gases in the atmosphere like carbon dioxide, dissolved the volcanic rocks of the sea floor. This process released a huge variety of minerals and elements into the water: iron, silica, magnesium, and many others. At the same time, deep beneath the surface, hydrothermal vents gushed superheated, mineral-rich water from the planet's interior. These dark, smoky plumes added even more complex chemicals to the mix. The ocean was a bubbling cauldron of potential, a perfect laboratory for the next great step in our story. For millions of years, this chemical soup churned and circulated, driven by the planet's inner heat and the weak tides caused by a moon that was much closer to Earth than it is today. In this warm, energetic environment, something remarkable began to happen. The simple molecules dissolved in the water started to link together. Fueled by energy from lightning striking the surface, from ultraviolet radiation from the dim sun, and from the chemical reactions at deep-sea vents, they formed more complex structures. Amino acids and nucleotides, the very building blocks of life, were being created spontaneously within the ocean. This process was incredibly slow and random. It was a game of chance on a planetary scale. Countless combinations of molecules formed and broke apart. Most led to nothing. But in the warm, protected environment of the ocean, some of these complex molecules were stable. They persisted. Over unimaginable stretches of time, the concentration of these organic building blocks grew. The primordial soup was becoming richer, more complex, more potent. The ocean was not yet alive, but it was gathering all the necessary ingredients, waiting for a spark of organization, a moment of impossible luck. Let us stay here, floating in the warm, silent waters of this primordial sea. The world is quiet. There are no fish, no seaweed, no shells on the seafloor. There is only water, rock, and the rich chemical soup. But now, after eons of random chemical shuffling, a miracle is about to occur. In some sheltered corner of this vast ocean, perhaps in a shallow, sun-warmed tidal pool, or clinging to the mineral surfaces near a deep-sea vent, a collection of molecules crosses a threshold. They form a structure that can protect itself from the outside world, and most importantly, a structure that can make a copy of itself. This was the dawn of life. It was not a grand or sudden event. It was a quiet, microscopic happening. The first living things were incredibly simple, far simpler than any bacteria we know today. They were just tiny bubbles, little sacs of lipids and proteins, enclosing a strand of genetic material that held the instructions for replication. These first cells were fragile, their existence precarious. They did nothing more than float, absorb chemicals from the surrounding water, and when they had grown enough, divide into two. This was the humble beginning of a lineage that would one day lead to all life on Earth. For millions of years, these first life forms, these simple prokaryotes, were all that existed. They remained hidden in the murky depths, slowly multiplying. The ocean was their entire universe. It provided them with food, with shelter, and with the medium through which they could spread. They were entirely dependent on the chemical soup around them for energy. They were consumers, taking what the ocean offered. The world was in a delicate balance. But life has a way of changing its environment, and a new innovation was on the horizon that would alter the planet forever. Some of these early cells developed a new trick. Instead of just absorbing the chemicals around them, they learned to harness energy from the dim sunlight that filtered down from the surface. This was the birth of photosynthesis. These new organisms, the ancestors of modern cyanobacteria, began to use sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to create their own food. This was a revolutionary step. It freed life from its dependence on the limited chemical soup. It opened up a new, almost limitless source of energy. And in the process, it began to release a waste product into the ocean, a reactive, toxic gas called oxygen. As you drift in this ancient time, notice the profound silence. The world is still a quiet place. The deep, rhythmic pulse of the waves on barren shores is the only constant sound. Under the surface where we are now, there is an even deeper stillness. There are no clicks of dolphins, no songs of whales, no skittering of crabs on the seafloor. The only movement is the slow drift of currents and the silent, invisible multiplication of microscopic life. It is a lonely, alien world, but it is a world on the cusp of a great transformation. The silent work of these tiny photosynthetic cells is about to change everything. For a very long time, the oxygen being produced by these cyanobacteria did not escape into the atmosphere. Instead, it reacted with the vast amount of dissolved iron in the oceans. The oxygen and iron combined to form iron oxide, rust. For hundreds of millions of years, this rust rained down through the water column, settling in thick layers on the ocean floor. If you could see the bottom of this ancient sea, you would see it covered in a deep red dust. These layers would one day become the great iron ore deposits that we mine today, a rusty signature of life's first breath. This process, known as the Great Oxidation Event, was a slow-motion catastrophe for much of the early life on Earth. Oxygen was a poison to the anaerobic organisms that had dominated the planet until then. As oxygen levels in the ocean slowly began to rise, it caused a mass extinction, wiping out countless species of microscopic life that could not tolerate its presence. But life is resilient. Some organisms retreated to oxygen-free pockets in the deep-sea mud, where their descendants still live today. Others, however, evolved new ways to not only tolerate oxygen, but to use it to create energy far more efficiently. This change set the stage for a new kind of life to emerge, larger, more complex cells that could power themselves with oxygen. But that is a story for later in our journey. For now, let us rest here in this silent turning point world. The oceans are slowly clearing as the iron rusts out of the water. The murky green-brown is giving way to a clearer, bluer hue. The air is changing. The world is being prepared for the next act. Feel the deep, slow rhythm of this immense change. A silent, microscopic revolution unfolding over millions of years, deep under the waves of time. Let us drift forward now, carried on the gentle currents of time. The world we left behind was a world of microbes, a silent planet slowly rusting under a new oxygenated sky. For nearly 2 billion years, life remained simple, microscopic. But beneath the surface, in the deep-time laboratory of the ocean, the stage was being set for a dramatic new act. The oxygen that once poisoned the seas was now a source of powerful energy, waiting to be harnessed. The genetic machinery of life had been refined, becoming more complex and capable. The world was holding its breath, waiting for a spark. And then it came. Around 540 million years ago, in a geological blink of an eye, life in the oceans burst forth with astonishing creativity. This event is so remarkable that we call it the Cambrian explosion. Over a period of just a few tens of millions of years, the seas, which had been home only to simple cells and strange, soft-bodied organisms, suddenly filled with an incredible diversity of complex animals. It was as if a cosmic artist had suddenly woken up and begun to sketch out all the basic body plans for animal life. The quiet, empty oceans were abruptly filled with movement, with hunting, and with being hunted. All at once, the seas were teeming with creatures that had hard parts, shells, spines, and external skeletons. This is one reason we know so much about this period. For the first time, life left behind a rich and detailed fossil record for us to discover. Imagine floating in these waters. You would see trilobites, armoured creatures like oversized woodlice, scuttling across the seabed. You might see strange, spiny creatures like Wiwaxia, covered in spikes for protection. And you might catch a glimpse of the era's top predator, the fearsome Anomalocaris, a large swimming hunter with grasping claws and a circular mouth. This explosion of life was a revolution. It was the invention of the animal kingdom as we know it. The quiet, static world of the microbes gave way to a dynamic ecosystem of predators and prey. Creatures developed eyes to see, legs to walk, and shells to hide in. The silent underwater world was filled with the new sounds of scuttling, burrowing, and crunching. It was the dawn of a new era, a more dangerous and vibrant marine world. The simple lullaby of the waves was now accompanied by the complex orchestration of life, a symphony that began in the Cambrian seas and continues to this day. Following the great burst of creativity in the Cambrian period, life did not stand still. It began to build. The ocean floor, once a barren expanse of mud and sand, started to transform into a complex, three-dimensional world. The first reefs began to grow, though they were not yet made of the corals we know today. These ancient structures were built by strange, sponge-like creatures called archaeocyathans. They formed conical, cup-shaped skeletons, and together they grew into vast, intricate thickets on the shallow sea floor, creating the planet's first apartment buildings for marine life. These early reefs were bustling communities. They provided nooks and crannies where smaller, more vulnerable creatures could hide from the newly evolved predators. They created new surfaces for other organisms to attach to and grow upon. The water column around these structures swarmed with small swimming arthropods, and the seafloor below was home to a carpet of brachiopods, shelled animals that looked like clams but were from a different lineage entirely. The reefs were oases of life, hotspots of diversity in the vastness of the early Paleozoic ocean, establishing a pattern that would be repeated throughout the ages. Beyond the reefs, the seafloor was decorated with other strange and wonderful forms. Imagine gardens of sea lilies or crinoids as they are known to science. These were not plants, but animals related to starfish. They had long, flexible stalks that rooted them to the bottom and a crown of feathery arms that they used to filter food particles from the water. They swayed gently in the currents, looking like strange, underwater flowers. Great forests of these crinoids covered huge areas of the seabed, their stalks and arms creating a dense, otherworldly landscape that provided shelter for countless other species. This was a world of builders. Life was not just existing in the ocean, it was actively shaping it. The skeletons of these reef builders and the remains of the creatures in their gardens slowly accumulated on the seafloor. Over millions of years, these layers of shell and bone were compressed into rock, forming the vast limestone deposits found around the world today. When you see an old building made of limestone, you are looking at the ghosts of these ancient seas. You are touching the remains of a world built by simple creatures, deep under the waves of time, hundreds of millions of years ago. As the reefs and seafloor gardens flourished, a new kind of animal was making its debut. It was a creature that would come to dominate the oceans and eventually give rise to all backboned animals on Earth, including ourselves. These were the first fish, but they were not like the fish you might picture today. The earliest forms were small, jawless, and covered in heavy, bony armour. They looked more like swimming tadpoles wrapped in chainmail. They had no fins to speak of, wriggling their bodies to move through the water, sucking up mud and debris from the ocean floor. For many millions of years, these armoured, jawless fish were humble bottom dwellers, cautiously navigating a world dominated by giant sea scorpions and other formidable invertebrate predators. They were the underdogs of the ancient seas. But they possessed a revolutionary new feature, an internal skeleton with a flexible rod of cartilage running down their back, the first backbone. This internal support system would prove to be incredibly versatile. It allowed for the later development of fins for steering and, most importantly, a powerful innovation that would change the rules of life in the ocean forever. The jaw. The evolution of the jaw from the forwardmost gill arches was a pivotal moment in the history of life. Suddenly, fish were no longer limited to sucking up mud. They could bite, they could grasp, tear, and crush. This opened up a whole new world of feeding possibilities and kick-started an evolutionary arms race. Fish grew larger, faster, and more powerful. The Devonian period, which followed, is rightly known as the Age of Fishes. The oceans filled with an astonishing variety of jawed fish, from sleek, shark-like predators to the enormous armour-plated Dunkleosteus, a terrifying hunter that could grow as large as a bus. With jaws and fins, fish became masters of the marine realm. They could swim faster, navigate more accurately, and hunt more effectively than anything that had come before. They diversified into thousands of forms, filling every available niche in the ocean, from the sunlit surface waters to the dark abyss. They outcompeted the giant sea scorpions and trilobites, driving many of them to extinction. The balance of power in the ocean had shifted for good. The quiet, scuttling world of the invertebrates had given way to the swift, dynamic world of the fish. While the great drama of the Age of Fishes unfolded in the open ocean, another quiet revolution was beginning in the shallow waters along the coast. The land was still mostly barren, a world of rock and dust. But where the water met the shore, in the tidal pools and sun-drenched estuaries, life was testing its limits. Here, the ancestors of modern plants, simple green algae, began to cling to the wet rocks at the ocean's edge. They were the first pioneers, the first living things to venture out of the water, the environment that had cradled life for more than 3 billion years. This was a hostile new world. Out of the water, organisms had to contend with the full force of gravity, the drying power of the air, and the harsh ultraviolet radiation from the sun. The first land plants were small and simple, little more than a green crust on the rocks, needing to stay close to the constant spray of the waves. But slowly they evolved. They developed tougher outer layers to hold in moisture, stronger structures to support themselves, and root-like systems to anchor themselves and draw nutrients from the primitive soil. The greening of the continents had begun. As plants took hold on land, they provided new opportunities for animals. The first creatures to follow them out of the water were likely small invertebrates, like the ancestors of millipedes and insects, finding new food sources and shelter among the low-growing greenery. Back in the water, a new kind of fish was also evolving in these shallow, crowded environments. They were the lobe-finned fishes. Unlike other fish, they had stout, fleshy fins supported by bones, precursors to legs. They also developed primitive lungs, allowing them to gulp air from the surface when the water became stagnant and low in oxygen. These adaptations were perfect for life on the ledge between water and land. In times of drought, when their shallow pools dried up, these remarkable fish could use their strong, limb-like fins to haul themselves across the mud to a new body of water. Over generations, these fins became stronger, more leg-like. The journey from fin to foot was a slow one, taking millions of years. But eventually, one of these pioneering creatures made the definitive step. It was the first amphibian, the first backboned animal to walk on land, its skin still wet with the memory of the sea, its lungs breathing the air of a new world. The Paleozoic era, which began with the Cambrian explosion and saw the rise of reefs, fish and the first steps onto land, came to a catastrophic end. Around 252 million years ago, the planet experienced the most severe extinction event in its history. It is known as the Permian-Triassic extinction, or more simply, the Great Dying. It was a planetary cataclysm on an almost unimaginable scale, a silent apocalypse that unfolded over thousands of years, wiping out most of the life that had evolved over the previous 300 million years. The vibrant marine world we have been exploring was brought to its knees. The exact cause is still debated, but it was likely triggered by colossal volcanic eruptions in what is now Siberia. For millennia, immense floods of lava poured across the land, releasing vast quantities of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. The planet warmed rapidly. This warming had a devastating effect on the oceans. As the seas heated up, they could no longer hold as much dissolved oxygen, creating vast, suffocating dead zones. At the same time, the increased carbon dioxide in the air dissolved into the water, making it more acidic and difficult for creatures like corals and brachiopods to build their shells and skeletons. The effects were devastating. The great reefs, which had been thriving for millions of years, withered and died. The crinoid gardens vanished. In the oceans, it is estimated that up to 96% of all marine species were wiped out. The once common trilobites, which had survived for 270 million years, were gone forever. The fearsome sea scorpions disappeared. Entire branches of the tree of life were snipped away in an instant of geological time. The oceans fell silent once more, eerily empty, their complex ecosystems utterly shattered. But life, as we have seen, is resilient. The Great Dying was a profound reset, a near-total wipe of the slate. The few species that survived, the hardy, the lucky, the adaptable, found themselves in a new, empty world, full of opportunity. This mass extinction cleared the way for a new cast of characters to take the stage. The recovery would be slow, taking millions of years. But from the ashes of this catastrophe, new forms of life would arise, including the first marine reptiles and the ancestors of modern corals. The ocean's story was not over. It was simply entering a new, dramatic chapter. For countless ages, the story of life was written only in the water and on the newly greening land. Our own distant ancestors, the early primates, lived far from the coast, nestled in the safety of ancient forests. To them, the great ocean was not a reality. It was not even a dream. It was a distant, unknown edge of their world, a place they had never seen or imagined. Their lives were governed by the rhythm of the trees, the scent of the soil after rain, and the comings and goings of forest creatures. The deep, rhythmic pulse of the ocean was a sound they did not know, a heartbeat they could not yet feel in the world's chest. Let us drift forward in time once more, much closer to our own age. We leave behind the deep time of geology and evolution and enter the age of humanity. The first hominins, our earliest upright ancestors, appeared in the savannas of Africa. Their world was one of vast grasslands and scattered trees under a wide, open sky. They, too, lived inland. But as generations passed, these intelligent, curious beings began to spread. They followed the rivers, the life-giving arteries of the continent, which flowed slowly but surely towards the sea. They were not seeking the ocean. They were simply following the water, the source of all life. Imagine one of these early humans, perhaps 1 million years ago, cresting a rise in the landscape. For their entire life, they have known only the browns and greens of the savannah. But now, for the first time, they see something new on the horizon. A vast, flat, shimmering line of the deepest blue, stretching from one end of their vision to the other. It is an impossible sight, a sky that has fallen to the ground. They can smell a strange, sharp, salty scent on the wind, and they can hear a low, constant roar, a sound utterly alien to the quiet hum of the grasslands. This is humanity's first encounter with the shore. This first meeting was likely one of caution and of awe. The sheer scale of the ocean would have been overwhelming. Its ceaseless motion, the power in its waves, would have been intimidating. This was not a gentle river or a placid lake. This was something else entirely. A living, breathing entity, powerful and untamable. These early people would have approached the water's edge with hesitation, watching the waves crash upon the sand, feeling the spray on their skin. They stood at the boundary of two worlds, their familiar land and this new, immense world of water. A long relationship was about to begin. As our ancestors grew more familiar with the coastline, fear slowly gave way to fascination. The edge of the sea was a place of constant change, an endless discovery. It was a dynamic world, utterly different from the static landscapes inland. The twice-daily rhythm of the tides was a new kind of clock, a reliable pattern that brought new things with each cycle. When the water retreated, it left behind a world of wonders in the tidal pools. These small, calm pockets of the great ocean were like natural treasure chests, revealing their contents for a few hours before the sea returned to claim them once more. These early humans were intelligent and resourceful. They learned to read the rhythms of the coast. They saw that the tidal pools were teeming with life. Small fish, crabs and other creatures were trapped in these shallow waters, easy to catch. The rocks were covered in shellfish like mussels and oysters, a new and abundant source of food that did not need to be chased and hunted. The ocean was offering a gift, a reliable bounty that could be harvested with patience and observation. For people who lived a precarious existence, this was a discovery of immense importance. The shore became a place of sustenance. This new food source was more than just sustenance, it was brain food. Shellfish are incredibly rich in fatty acids and essential nutrients that are vital for brain development. Some scientists believe that this reliable, nutrient-rich coastal diet played a crucial role in the evolution of the modern human brain. The ocean was not just feeding our ancestors' bodies, it was feeding their minds. It was helping to fuel the very growth in intellect and curiosity that would allow humanity to one day understand the ocean itself. Our deep connection to the sea began not with sailing, but with simply eating at its edge. So, picture our ancestors, perhaps 100,000 years ago, gathered on a beach as the sun sets. They are working together, prying shells from the rocks and collecting food from the pools left by the retreating tide. They are communicating, sharing knowledge, and teaching their children how to read the signs of the sea. The ocean is no longer just a fearsome entity. It has become a provider, a part of their home. Its rhythmic sounds are now the familiar backdrop to their daily lives, a lullaby of security. They are becoming people of the coast, their culture and their very biology being shaped by the beckoning edge of the water. Life on the coast brought more than just food. The ocean was a generous provider of materials and tools. The constant motion of the waves, grinding rocks and shells against one another for millennia, created smooth, rounded pebbles and sharp-edged fragments. Our ancestors, with their developing minds, recognized the potential in these gifts from the sea. A smooth, flat stone could be used for grinding. A sharp piece of shell could become a cutting or scraping tool. The beach was a natural workshop, with new, raw materials delivered twice a day by the patient work of the tides, free for the taking. The ocean also offered treasures of a different kind. Beautiful shells, with their intricate patterns and pearlescent sheens, were collected not for their utility, but for their beauty. These were perhaps the first forms of personal adornment, the first jewellery. Finding a perfect shell, drilling a small hole in it, and stringing it on a piece of plant fibre was an act of creativity. It was an expression of an emerging sense of self, of beauty, and of culture. When archaeologists find these ancient shell beads at inland sites, far from any coast, we see the first evidence of trade, of long-distance connections between different groups of people. The ocean also became a canvas for the imagination. As people sat around their fires on the beach at night, listening to the endless crash and sigh of the waves, they began to tell stories. The sea was a place of mystery and power, a perfect home for gods and monsters. What lay beyond that dark, shimmering horizon? What massive creatures might live in those impenetrable depths? The ocean became a wellspring of myth and legend. It was a powerful, moody god in one story, a gentle, life-giving mother in another. These stories were humanity's first attempt to make sense of this vast and powerful force in their lives. These myths and legends were more than just entertainment. They were a way of encoding and passing down essential knowledge. A story about a sea monster that lives beyond the reef might be a way of warning children not to swim in dangerous currents. A legend about a benevolent sea god who provides fish might be tied to the seasons and the best times for fishing. The ocean's rhythm became woven into the fabric of human culture, shaping our earliest art, our first economies, and our deepest beliefs about the world. The gifts of the tides were both practical and spiritual. For many thousands of years, humanity's relationship with the ocean was confined to its edge. The sea was a provider and a source of inspiration, but it was also a barrier. It was a vast, impassable frontier. But the human mind, fed by the ocean's bounty, is a restless and inventive thing. People who lived by the water would have watched logs and fallen trees floating on its surface. They would have seen how these pieces of wood were carried by the currents and pushed by the wind. And in that observation, a revolutionary idea was born. Perhaps we too could float upon the water. The very first boats were likely simple, opportunistic creations. A person might have clung to a large log to cross a calm river estuary, paddling with their hands. This simple act of trust, of placing oneself upon the water, was a monumental leap of faith. Later, they learned to be more deliberate. Perhaps they tied several logs together with vines to create a more stable platform. The first raft. This simple invention opened up new possibilities. Now they could venture a little further from the shore, into deeper water, to fish in places they could not reach before. The barrier was beginning to dissolve. From the raft came the dugout canoe. This was a true vessel, a testament to human ingenuity. Our ancestors learned that by hollowing out a large log, using fire and sharp stone tools, they could create a craft that was both stable and maneuverable. It took immense time and effort, but the result was transformative. In a dugout canoe, a small group of people could travel significant distances along the coast. They could explore new islands just offshore and trade with neighbouring groups more easily. The ocean was no longer just a place to gather food from. It was becoming a highway. This new technology allowed humanity to spread across the globe in ways that would have been impossible before. It was in vessels like these, simple canoes paddled by brave and desperate people, that humans first reached Australia some 65,000 years ago. This was an incredible achievement, requiring a journey across open water out of sight of land. These were the world's first true sailors, their names lost to time. They were not admirals or explorers seeking fame. They were families seeking a new home, guided by the stars and the currents, their courage wrapped in the thin shell of a hollowed-out log. With the invention of the first boats, the sound of the ocean began to change. It was no longer just the sound of waves on the shore, heard from the safety of the land. Now there was a new sound, the gentle lapping of water against the side of a canoe, the rhythmic dip and pull of a paddle, the whisper of the wind against a primitive sail made of animal hide or woven leaves. These were the sounds of humanity's first tentative steps into the great blue expanse. They were the sounds of a new partnership being forged between humankind and the sea. This new proximity to the water deepened our relationship with it. Out on a small boat, you are intimately connected to the ocean's mood. You feel every swell, every shift in the current. You learn to read the texture of the water's surface, to know what the wind is doing, to anticipate the coming of a storm. The ocean becomes a living partner in your journey, a powerful being that must be respected, understood, and worked with. Early sailors developed a deep intuitive knowledge of the sea, a wisdom passed down not in books but in stories and in shared experience on the water. This knowledge was encoded in the stars. Out on the open water with no landmarks in sight, the night sky was the only map. Ancient mariners learned to navigate by the fixed points of light above them. They knew which stars rose and which set, and how their positions changed with the seasons. The sky and the sea became two halves of a single world, one reflecting the other. The celestial patterns guided their canoes across vast unknown tracts of ocean, allowing them to discover and settle the most remote islands on Earth, from the Pacific to the Indian Ocean. As we rest here on the edge of sleep, let us listen for these ancient whispers on the water. Listen for the soft splash of a paddle in the calm sea of a starlit night. Imagine the courage of those first sailors, leaving the safety of the shore behind, putting their trust in their simple vessel and their knowledge of the waves. They were the pioneers who turned the ocean from a barrier into a bridge, connecting the scattered lands of our world. Their journeys were the first chapter in a long story of exploration, a story that would forever change humanity's destiny, carried forward on the timeless rhythm of the tides. Let us remain in our small canoe, floating on the quiet waters of the past. The first journeys were short, hesitant steps, but in one corner of the world these steps grew into confident ocean-spanning strides. In the vast blue expanse of the Pacific Ocean, a group of people achieved something extraordinary. They were the Polynesians. Without compasses, without written maps, they became the undisputed masters of the open ocean. Their voyages were not accidents. They were the result of a deep, intimate knowledge of the sea, a wisdom passed down through countless generations, whispered on the wind and sung in their stories. These navigators did not see the ocean as an empty space between islands. They saw it as a network of pathways, a landscape full of signs and signals. They learned to read the swell of the waves. They knew that waves refract around islands, creating distinct patterns that could be felt in the hull of their canoe long before land was visible. They could feel the subtle shift in a wave pattern and know that an island lay over the horizon. They followed the flight paths of birds, knowing that certain species had to return to land at night. They watched the colours of the clouds at sunset, looking for the faint greenish tinge that reflected a lagoon below. Their map was not on paper. It was in the sky above. The stars were their most trusted guides. They memorized the paths of hundreds of stars, knowing where each would rise and where it would set throughout the year. To keep a straight course on a long voyage, a navigator would align the canoe with a rising star. As that star climbed too high in the sky, they would switch to the next star, rising in the same position. They built intricate star compasses in their minds, a celestial chart of breathtaking complexity. This was not cold, abstract science. It was a living, breathing relationship with the cosmos, a dialogue between the sailor and the stars. The vessels they built were as remarkable as their knowledge. They were double-hulled canoes, fast, stable, and capable of carrying people, plants, and animals across thousands of miles of open water. These were not just boats, they were arks, carrying a seed of their culture to new lands. In these canoes, they settled the most remote specks of land on our planet, from Hawaii to Easter Island to New Zealand. They created a vast interconnected world across a third of the Earth's surface. Their story is a quiet testament to human courage and a profound understanding of the ocean's subtle language. Let us allow the currents of time to carry us to another sea, a smaller, more enclosed body of water. This is the Mediterranean, the sea in the middle of the land. For thousands of years this sea was the heart of the Western world. It was not a vast, unknown frontier like the Pacific, but a busy, crowded highway. Its shores were home to a succession of great civilizations, the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Phoenicians, and the Romans. For them, the sea was not a barrier, but the central square of their world. It was the primary source of their wealth, their power, and the spread of their ideas. The first great sailors of this sea were the Phoenicians. They were merchants, not explorers in the same vein as the Polynesians. Their voyages were driven by trade. In their sturdy, round-hulled ships they carried timber from Lebanon, metals from Spain, and fine textiles from their own cities. They were masters of coastal navigation, rarely venturing out of sight of land if they could help it. They sailed by day and anchored in a safe cove by night. Their progress was slow but steady, weaving a web of commerce that connected the entire basin. They were the threads that stitched the Mediterranean world together. The Greeks followed, learning from the Phoenicians. They were colonists and thinkers. They built cities all around the sea, from Italy to the shores of the Black Sea. And as they travelled, they carried their ideas with them, their philosophy, their democracy, their art. The sea became a conduit for culture. Later, the Romans would come to dominate this sea so completely that they called it Mare Nostrum, our sea. They built massive fleets of warships to stamp out piracy and huge grain ships to feed the sprawling city of Rome. For the Romans, control of the sea meant control of their world. The sound of the Mediterranean was different. It was not the lonely whisper of a paddle on the open ocean. It was the sound of commerce and of conflict, the creak of rigging on 1,000 merchant ships, the rhythmic thud of oars on a trireme, a Greek warship rowed by over 100 men, the shouts of dockworkers in bustling ports like Alexandria or Carthage. It was the sound of a world growing smaller, more connected, more complex. This sea, enclosed by continents, taught humanity the arts of trade, of naval warfare, and of building empires upon the ceaseless movement of the waves. Let us drift north now, away from the warm, sun-drenched Mediterranean. We travel to the cold grey waters of the North Atlantic. Here a different kind of sailor emerged, forged in a harsher world of ice, fog and ferocious storms. These were the Vikings. In the popular imagination they are often seen only as fierce raiders, but they were also brilliant shipbuilders, fearless explorers, and some of the most skilled navigators of their time. Their relationship with the sea was one of raw, brutal necessity and profound, practical skill. They did not just sail upon the ocean, they wrestled with it. Their secret weapon was the longship. This vessel was a masterpiece of naval engineering, a symphony of wood and wind. It was long, narrow and flexible, designed to ride over the waves rather than plough through them. It had a shallow draft, meaning it could sail up rivers deep into enemy territory, but it was also strong enough to cross the open ocean. With its single, large, square sail and a bank of oars for when the wind failed, the longship was both fast and versatile. It was the perfect tool for a people whose lives and ambitions were inextricably linked to the sea. Like the Polynesians, the Vikings navigated without magnetic compasses. They too used the sun and the stars. They understood the position of the sun at midday to find south. On cloudy days, they may have used legendary sunstones, crystals that polarize light, to find the sun's position even when it was hidden. They had an intimate knowledge of the coastlines, the currents, and the migratory patterns of whales and birds. They followed what they called the whale road. Knowing these great creatures often followed predictable routes. Their knowledge was practical, hard-won, and held as a closely guarded secret by their chieftains and navigators. With these skills and these ships, the Vikings embarked on an age of incredible expansion. They sailed south to the Mediterranean, east into the rivers of Russia, and most remarkably, west into the unknown Atlantic. They settled Iceland, a remote volcanic island in the middle of the ocean. From there they pushed on to discover Greenland. And around the year 1000, 5 centuries before Columbus, a Viking ship led by Leif Erikson was blown off course and landed on the shores of North America. They were the first Europeans to reach the New World, their dragon-prowed ships resting on a shore their ancestors could never have imagined. The world was still a fractured place. The Polynesians knew the Pacific. The Vikings knew the North Atlantic. The merchants of the Indian Ocean knew their monsoon-driven trade routes. But these were all separate worlds. no one yet understood the true shape of the planet, or that all the great oceans were connected into one single global sea. But a change was coming. In Europe, a new age of curiosity, ambition and technology was dawning. The invention of the magnetic compass, improved maps, and new, more capable ships like the Caravel would unlock the final secrets of the globe. This new ship, the Caravel, was a hybrid marvel. It combined the square sail of the northern Europeans, which was good for sailing with the wind, with the lateen or triangular sail of the Mediterranean, which allowed a ship to sail against the wind. This meant that for the first time sailors could reliably venture into the open ocean and have confidence that they could make it home again, regardless of the wind's direction. This technological leap gave European sailors the courage to turn away from the coast and sail south and west into what they called the Sea of Darkness. The Portuguese led the way. Driven by a desire for trade and a crusading spirit, their brave captains began a systematic exploration of the African coast. Year after year, they pushed further south, mapping the coastline, establishing trading posts and overcoming deep-seated fears of boiling seas and sea monsters. In 1488, Bartolomeu Dias finally rounded the southern tip of Africa, proving that the Atlantic and Indian Oceans were connected. A decade later, Vasco da Gama followed his route, reaching India and opening a direct sea route to the spices and riches of the East, forever changing the balance of global power. At the same time, an Italian sailor named Christopher Columbus, sailing for Spain, had a different, more radical idea. He believed the world was small enough that he could reach the East by sailing west. In 1492, with 3 small ships, he set out across the unknown Atlantic. After a tense voyage of many weeks, he made landfall not in Asia, but on an island in the Bahamas. He had stumbled upon a whole new world, 2 vast continents unknown to Europe. His voyage, though based on a faulty premise, shattered the old maps and opened the floodgates of exploration, connecting the 2 hemispheres for the first time in human history. The voyages of Columbus and da Gama, opened a new and final chapter in the age of exploration. The race was on to map the rest of the planet. Just a few decades after Columbus, a Portuguese explorer named Ferdinand Magellan, actually sailing for Spain, set out on the most ambitious voyage yet attempted. His goal was to prove that the world was round and to find a western passage to the Spice Islands. He sailed down the coast of South America, navigating those treacherous, stormy straits that now bear his name, and emerged into a vast, calm ocean. He named it the Pacific, for it seemed so peaceful compared to the Atlantic. Magellan's journey was really an epic of human endurance and suffering. He and his crew sailed for months across the Pacific, their food and water running out, their bodies racked by scurvy. They were the first humans to truly grasp the immense, almost incomprehensible size of this great ocean. Magellan himself would not complete the journey. He was killed in the Philippines. But one of his ships, the Victoria, continued west, crossing the Indian Ocean, rounding Africa, and finally, after 3 long years, limping back to Spain. It was the first ship to circumnavigate the globe. The world was officially, undeniably whole. These voyages had a profound impact on the human psyche. The old mythical world of monsters and endless oceans was replaced by a new world that was finite, measurable, and known. The sea, once a terrifying barrier, was now a global network of highways connecting all the lands and all the peoples of the world. This new interconnectedness brought wealth and new knowledge, but it also brought conquest, disease, and the subjugation of ancient cultures. The age of exploration was an age of both incredible discovery and immense tragedy, a complex legacy that still shapes our world today. Let us rest here for a moment, in this newly mapped world. The aural landscape of the ocean has changed forever. It is now the sound of a global system. The creak of a Spanish galleon laden with silver from the Americas. The snap of a Dutch trading ship's sails as it plies the route to Indonesia. The clang of an anchor dropping in a harbour in Japan. The sound of waves on the shore is now the same in every part of the world. But for the first time, humanity understood that these shores were all connected. The ocean's timeless lullaby now cradled a world that was, at last, fully known to itself. The great voyages of discovery had mapped the surface of our world. Humanity now knew the shape of the continents and the vastness of the seas. But the ocean itself remained a place of mystery. What lay beneath the waves was still the realm of speculation and myth. The age of geographical exploration slowly gave way to a new kind of journey, the age of scientific exploration. The driving force was no longer just trade or conquest, but a deep and persistent curiosity. A desire to understand the ocean not as a highway, but as a world in its own right, with its own laws, its own life, and its own hidden history. This new age began in earnest in the 19th century. Ships set sail not to find new lands, but to gather new knowledge. One of the most important of these was the voyage of HMS Challenger, which departed from Britain in 1872. This was not a military or commercial vessel. It was a floating laboratory, staffed by scientists. For nearly 4 years, the Challenger crisscrossed the globe, systematically studying the ocean. Its mission was to measure the depths, to record the temperatures, to sample the water, and, most importantly, to discover what life existed in the dark, cold abyss. The discoveries of the Challenger expedition were revolutionary. Before this voyage, most scientists believed that the deep ocean, below a few hundred meters, was a lifeless, static void. They called it the Azoic Zone. But the dredges and nets of the Challenger, lowered miles down into the crushing darkness, came back teeming with life. They brought up bizarre, delicate creatures that had never been seen before. Animals perfectly adapted to a world of immense pressure and total blackness. The expedition discovered thousands of new species and proved that life existed at all depths of the ocean. The abyss was not empty. It was a vibrant, living realm. This voyage marked the birth of modern oceanography. It replaced guesswork with data and myth with measurement. The scientists aboard the Challenger laid the groundwork for everything we know today about the ocean. They created the first detailed maps of the seafloor, revealing vast plains, towering mountain ranges and deep trenches. They analysed the chemical makeup of seawater from around the globe, confirming that it was remarkably consistent. They began to piece together the complex puzzle of ocean currents. Their journey was as significant as Magellan's, but instead of circling the world, they revealed the world that lay beneath. The work begun by the Challenger expedition sparked a century of intense underwater discovery. Humanity, which had spent millennia floating on the ocean's surface, was finally ready to go beneath it. The 20th century saw the invention of technologies that opened up this last frontier. The first of these was sonar, a technology born of warfare which used sound waves to map the seafloor in incredible detail. The faint echoes bouncing back from the depths painted a picture of a hidden landscape more dramatic than anything on land, with the longest mountain range on Earth, the mid-Atlantic ridge, and trenches deep enough to swallow Mount Everest. Then came the vessels that could take us there. In the 1930s, pioneers like William Beebe and Otis Barton descended in a tiny steel sphere called a bathysphere, tethered to a ship by a cable. Peering through a tiny quartz window, they were the first humans to witness the deep-sea world with their own eyes, describing the strange bioluminescent creatures that floated past them like stars in a dark galaxy. This was a profoundly courageous and risky endeavour, a journey into a realm more alien and hostile than the surface of the moon. Their descriptions captured the imagination of the world. In 1960, a new untethered vessel called the Trieste made the ultimate descent. With 2 men aboard, Jacques Picard and Don Walsh, it journeyed nearly 11,000 metres down to the deepest known point on Earth, the bottom of the Mariana Trench. In that place of unimaginable pressure, they saw something simple but profound. A small, flat fish swimming peacefully by. This single observation was a powerful confirmation that life could endure even in the most extreme environment on our planet. Humanity had finally reached the very bottom of the world. This exploration was not just for adventurers. It was also made personal. In the 1940s, Jacques Cousteau and Émile Gagnon co-invented the aqualung, the first self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, or scuba gear. For the first time, ordinary people could break the surface and swim freely with the fish, like one of them. It allowed scientists to study coral reefs up close and archaeologists to explore ancient shipwrecks. It allowed anyone with a sense of wonder to enter the silent blue world that had been closed to us for so long, and to feel for a moment a part of the ocean's gentle, weightless embrace. While scientists and explorers were revealing the wonders of the ocean, another, more pragmatic relationship was also developing. As the world's population grew and technology advanced, humanity began to look to the sea not just for fish, but for energy and resources on an industrial scale. The shallow shelves of the continents, which had once been mysterious sea floor, were now seen as a new frontier for industry. The quiet, ancient world beneath the waves was about to become a much noisier and busier place, its gentle rhythms overlaid with the hum and clatter of human enterprise. The quest for oil and gas led this charge. In the mid-20th century, companies learned how to drill for these resources not just on land, but in the shallow waters offshore. This led to the construction of massive offshore platforms, towering steel islands that stand on legs fixed to the seabed. These structures are cities at sea, home to workers who drill deep into the rock beneath the ocean floor, tapping the fossil fuels formed from the remains of ancient marine life that died millions of years ago. The modern world, with its cars and its power plants, became increasingly reliant on the energy buried deep beneath the waves. The ocean also became a highway for global trade on a scale the ancient Phoenicians could never have imagined. The invention of the shipping container in the 1950s revolutionized the movement of goods. Giant container ships, some stretching for 400 meters, now ply the ancient sea lanes, carrying the products of a globalized economy. The sound of the modern ocean is the deep, throbbing drone of these massive engines, a constant low-frequency hum that travels for hundreds of miles underwater. This ceaseless traffic connects our modern lives, bringing us food, clothes and electronics from every corner of the planet. At the same time, our ability to harvest life from the sea also became industrialized. Small fishing boats with nets and lines were replaced by giant factory trawlers, ships that can catch and process thousands of tons of fish in a single voyage. They use advanced sonar to find dense schools of fish and deploy nets so vast they could swallow entire cathedrals. This industrial efficiency allowed us to feed a growing planet, but it also began to exert an immense pressure on the ocean's living resources, a pressure that the slow, ancient cycles of marine life were not equipped to handle. For most of human history, the ocean seemed infinite. We believed it was a wilderness so vast and so resilient that our actions could have no lasting impact upon it. We saw it as a convenient place to dispose of our waste, a bottomless receptacle that would dilute and wash away anything we threw into it. For centuries, our sewage, our industrial chemicals and our garbage flowed into the sea, and for a long time the ocean seemed to absorb it all without complaint. But the modern industrial age, with its massive populations and new persistent materials, began to overwhelm the ocean's capacity to heal itself. One of the most visible signs of this is the problem of plastic. This remarkable material, so useful in our daily lives, is a curse upon the sea. Because it does not biodegrade, every piece of plastic ever made that has found its way into the ocean is still there in some form. It breaks down not into harmless elements, but into smaller and smaller pieces, called microplastics. These tiny fragments now fill the water column, from the surface to the deepest trenches. They are mistaken for food by marine animals, from the smallest plankton to the largest whales, entering the food web and causing untold harm. The invisible wounds are just as damaging. The same carbon dioxide from our industries and vehicles that is warming the planet is also being absorbed by the ocean. As we learned in the story of the Great Dying, this makes the water more acidic. This change is subtle, but it is catastrophic for many marine creatures. It makes it harder for corals to build their skeletons, for oysters and clams to form their shells, and for tiny plankton at the base of the food chain to survive. The vibrant, colourful coral reefs, the great cities of the sea, are now bleaching and dying around the world, their silence a stark warning of a system in distress. The sound of the modern ocean is therefore a sound of conflict. It is the deep hum of engines and the groan of drills, but it is also a sound of growing silence. The silence of reefs that no longer crackle with the noise of 1 billion tiny inhabitants. The silence of fishing grounds that are no longer home to vast schools of cod or tuna. The great ancient symphony of the sea is losing some of its most important players. The once mighty ocean, which cradled all life and shaped the destiny of our planet, is now wounded, its health inextricably tied to our own actions on the land. But our story does not end in despair. In the same way that science allowed us to understand the ocean's wounds, it is also showing us the path to healing. The modern age is not just an age of industry and impact, it is also an age of awareness. For the first time in our long history, we are beginning to understand the consequences of our actions. We are learning that the ocean is not infinite, but a fragile system that needs our protection. A new chapter in our relationship with the sea is being written, a chapter defined by a growing sense of responsibility and a call to conservation. All around the world, people are answering this call. Scientists are developing innovative ways to restore coral reefs and to clean up plastic pollution. Nations are coming together to create vast marine protected areas, great national parks of the sea where life can recover, free from the pressures of fishing and industry. These protected zones act as reservoirs of life, their bounty spilling over to replenish surrounding areas. They are an act of hope, a promise to future generations that we will not let the ocean's wonders fade away into memory. Our own connection to the ocean is also changing. We are learning to see it not just as a resource to be exploited, but as a source of peace, wonder, and inspiration. Millions of people now dive and snorkel, seeking a quiet, personal connection with the underwater world. We listen to recordings of whale songs, mesmerized by their complex and soulful communications. We sit on the shore, just as our earliest ancestors did, and we listen to the rhythmic sound of the waves, finding a sense of calm and perspective in their timeless pulse. This quiet, personal appreciation is the foundation of all conservation. And so, as we lie here ready for sleep, let us reflect on this modern ocean. It is a place of immense beauty and incredible complexity. It is a place of industry and of silent, deep wounds. But it is also a place of hope and of renewal. Our long journey with the sea, from our first tentative steps on the shore to our voyages into the deep, has brought us to this moment of choice. Listening to the ocean's gentle lullaby is no longer just a path to sleep. It is a reminder of what we stand to lose, and a quiet call to become better stewards of this blue heart of our world. Our long journey is coming to its end. We have drifted on the currents of time, from the fiery birth of our world to the quiet call for conservation in our modern age. We have witnessed the first stirrings of life in a murky, primeval soup. We have swum through seas filled with strange and wonderful creatures. We have stood with our ancestors on the shore, hearing the waves for the first time. We have sailed with brave explorers into the unknown. Now it is time to let these stories dissolve like salt in water. It is time to return gently to the here and now, to this room, to this bed, to this moment. Bring your awareness back to your own body. Feel the gentle weight of the blankets upon you. Notice the soft support of the pillow beneath your head. The great sweeping tides of history have receded, leaving you resting peacefully on the quiet shore of the present. The only tide that matters now is the gentle rhythmic tide of your own breath. Feel it flow in, bringing calm and stillness. Feel it flow out, carrying away the last remnants of the day. You have travelled far, but you have not moved at all. You are simply here, safe and at peace, wrapped in the quiet of the night. The sound of the ocean is still with you, but it is no longer the backdrop to a story of the past. It is a sound for this very moment. Listen to it now with fresh ears. Hear the soft sighing rush as a wave spreads across the sand. Listen for the gentle bubbling retreat as it draws back into the whole. Each wave is unique. Each sound is a singular event happening right now. It is not a memory. It is not a dream. It is a simple, profound reality. Let this sound anchor you completely in the present, a steady, soothing rhythm in the stillness of the night. There is nothing else you need to do. There is nowhere else you need to be. All the vastness of time, all the epic tales of life and land and sea have led to this simple, perfect moment of rest. All the complexity of the world can be set aside. Let your mind become as clear and as calm as a tidal pool after the sea has withdrawn, reflecting only the quiet, starry sky above. You are present. You are calm. You are ready to let go completely, to drift into the deep and restful peace that awaits you. As you lie here on the very edge of sleep, feel the deep and ancient connection you have with the ocean. It is a connection that runs deeper than stories, deeper than science. It is a connection written into your very being. Remember that the water that flows through you, the salt in your own tears, holds a memory of the sea. You are a child of the ocean, and its timeless rhythms are your oldest lullaby. The sound you hear is the sound of home, a gentle whisper from the cradle of all life, reminding you that you are part of something vast, ancient, and eternal. The ocean has held all of history in its embrace. It held the first fragile cells, protecting them as they grew. It embraced the great swimming reptiles and the first adventurous fish. It held the ships of explorers and the dreams of every sailor who ever looked to the horizon. It has absorbed the heat of the sun, the light of the moon, and the dust of falling stars. It has received every river, washed every shore, and connected every continent. And tonight it holds you too, Its gentle rhythmic sound is a constant, steady presence, a promise of security and peace. This embrace is one of pure acceptance. The ocean does not judge, it does not hurry, it simply is. It accepts the rivers that flow into it, the rain that falls upon it, the moonlight that shimmers on its surface. In the same way, you can now accept the deep rest that your body and mind are calling for. Let go of any need to control your thoughts. Let go of any lingering tensions in your body. Simply allow yourself to be held by this moment, by the darkness and by the soothing eternal sound of the waves. There is nothing to resist, nothing to hold on to. Let this feeling of being held, of being safely embraced, be the last thought you are aware of. It is the feeling of a profound and gentle love, the love of the planet for the life it bears. The ocean's song is the most patient sound in the world. It will be here long after we are gone, and it was here long before we arrived. By listening to it, we tap into that eternity. We borrow a piece of its endless peace. Allow yourself to sink into that peace now, as if you were floating in a warm, calm, and endless sea. The border between wakefulness and sleep is like the edge of the sea. It is a soft, indistinct line where one world gently bleeds into another. You are standing at that shoreline now. The world of the day, with its sharp edges and clear thoughts, is behind you. Ahead of you lies the vast, mysterious ocean of dreams. Do not be afraid to step into the water. The waves you have been listening to will carry you. They will rock you gently as you drift away from the firm ground of consciousness and float into the depths of your own mind. The stories we have shared tonight may follow you into your sleep. Perhaps you will dream of silent ancient seas lit by the glow of strange bioluminescent life. Perhaps you will dream of sailing in a simple canoe under a sky full of unfamiliar stars, feeling the old wise patterns of the swell beneath you. You might dream of colourful reefs, of giant, gentle whales, or simply of the feeling of floating, weightless and free, in a world of perfect, silent blue. Let your dreams be your own ocean, a place of wonder, discovery, and deep, restorative peace. The sound of the waves will be your faithful companion through the night. Even when you are no longer consciously listening, it will remain, a steady anchor for your sleeping mind. It will help to smooth out the edges of your dreams, washing away any anxieties that may try to surface. It is a constant reminder of the world's deep, slow and steady rhythm, a rhythm that you can align with as you sleep. Let it be the soundtrack to your rest, a gentle, percussive beat that encourages your body's own natural cycles of healing and renewal. And so, it is time to let go. Let my voice fade away. Let the stories dissolve. Let there be only the sound of the waves and the deep, peaceful darkness around you. The great ocean of sleep is calling to you now, inviting you into its healing embrace. Let it wash over you. Let it carry you away. Drift now. Dream now. Sleep now. Rest well, and may your dreams be as deep and as peaceful as the timeless sea. Good night.